Hello, good evening, and welcome to your Sunday edition of the Gersnet Weekly Rangers podcast. My name's Scott Patterson. As always, you are very welcome. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of things, a quick hello to our good friends across at Zenith Coins. These guys are currently pulling together their own beautifully crafted Rangers coin collection. 5 iconic coins, really celebrating big moments of our past. The founding fathers, Ibrox Stadium, there's a coin for the Barcelona Bears of 1972, a coin commemorated to the 9-in-a-row squad of the 90s, and a coin that is dedicated to our 55th League Championship title under Steven Gerrard from last year. Visit their websites, all the W's, zenithcoins.com. So, 24th of April, well, we're glad to be back, and joining me on the podcast this week is Ross, who is in the opposite chair. He's not hosting this week. Hi Ross, how are you?
I'm very well, Scott. I'm very well. Yeah, it's quite nice to not be hosting. I don't need to prepare the agenda. I just do my research, watch the game, and enjoy myself. No, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yes, very well, thank you. It's good to have you on. Good to meet you as well.
Absolutely.
And Dougie Kinnear's back. Hi Dougie, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Scott. First time joining a podcast with you, so it's a pleasure. But yes, nice and sunny up in Glasgow at the moment. Could do a little bit less wind, but no, it's been a good weekend.
Absolutely. Listen, you're absolutely right. I was out today with the kids and we went to a local park. Great intentions of hanging around in the swings, etc. And when we got there, it was icy cold, and I thought, no, sack that. You can go in the swings, and then we'll back up the road for some hot chocolate, and that'll do us nicely. Listen, so we've got a big Saturday to discuss. I think we're all very aware of what happened at Fir Park yesterday. We'll cover the occasion. We'll speak about the sort of build up to the game, the changes that were made, the match itself. We'll do a little bit about what this week really holds for Rangers. Huge week, 2 big games. One, of course, which traditionally always takes care of itself, final firm game of the season. A bigger game to come ahead of that, which I think deserves way more attention, to be perfectly honest with you. Ross, we'll go into the team selection for Motherwell first. 8 changes from the victory at Hampden. I'll be honest with you, when the team lines came in, my instant reaction was, we've chucked the league then, haven't we?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I did a quick chat with Ek on the channel 11 o'clock on Saturday, so about an hour before kickoff. And it was 15 minutes after that team had been announced, and we essentially were trying to rack our brains as to how we'd landed on that, with so many key players, important players being put on the bench. You know, John Lundstrom, Joe Aribo, Ryan Jack, and some real surprises in there. But it was apparent that the manager, I think, had 2 things on his mind. One was, of course, what we have coming up this week. And he's putting a lot of eggs in the European basket, in my opinion. Yeah. Which I'm not disappointed about. We all know about Celtic's form over the past 3 or 4 months, and I'm not sad to see us actually prioritising Europe at this point. But he's also he was very, very clearly had a game plan and strategy of pace up front, pacey forward players, and it worked. And actually, you know, we've all talked a lot about Gio and some of his selections and his tactics and what he's got right and what he's got wrong. I think it's clear he's a smart guy. Like he's always got a plan. He's always got some kind of scheme. And look, we'll talk about individual performances in a moment, but I was actually really, really impressed with what I saw from many of the players, many of the second string players, arguably, who came in. So yeah, a real surprise, but even going down to 10 men, it worked. We got what we wanted, and I think Gio should be applauded for that.
Yeah, agreed. Dougie, there was certainly some sort of eyebrow-raising names in there. Scott Wright for the start, Diallo playing from the start, Arfield almost playing the sort of pocket 10, if you like. Big thing for me was that, perhaps unfairly, you could argue that the cup keeper had been dropped. I don't think anyone really was surprised to see him play against Celtic at Hampden. I think you could argue he'd done enough to maybe keep his place for Sunday at Fir Park.
Yeah, I think John McLaughlin is a cup goalie, so he rightly started on Sunday last week at Hampden against Celtic. I'm not sure who should be our number 1 this season, to be perfectly honest, Scott.
It's a different pod, isn't
it? Big time. McLaughlin done nothing wrong against Celtic. In fact, he was very good coming off his line, which Obviously, Alan McGregor hasn't been this season.
Yeah.
But I don't think he comes up with the big moments like an Alan McGregor does. And Alan McGregor's proved it time and time again, even this season, particularly in Europe, with one eye on Thursday. Maybe G was thinking an ageing goalie needs some game time, some minutes on the park before a big game on Thursday. And maybe that's why he's been given the nod. But I put a poll out on Twitter this week asking supporters if they think that John McLaughlin should be number one next season. And it was unanimous. It was something like 87% said yes. And I think that speaks volumes as to how people rate our number two right now. And, you know, I've got no issues with either of them being number one right now. I just hope whoever it is on Thursday, and it's going to be Alan McGregor, needs to play out their skin. We need a big, big performance from everyone, especially our goalie on Thursday.
It's interesting, Dougie. You obviously, I seen your poll. Do you think a new goalkeeper comes into that equation in any way, shape or form? So if McGregor decides, after the final on the 21st of May, right, that's me, medal in my pocket, I'm off ski. I've done my bit, I'm quite happy. Does McLaughlin automatically become the new number one, or do we bring in someone else to fight for that jersey, if you like?
I think Alan Hutton has already kind of let the secret out that McGregor is planning to hang up his gloves at the end of the season. I don't know. What I can say is I think Robbie McCrory should be number two. And the fact that we've given John McLaughlin a new contract suggests that he's not going to be number two. There's a lot of names in the frame. You know, the obvious ones were guys like Benjamin Siegrist at Dundee United. But we've seen guys like Martin Frazel over in, I think it's Schalke.
Schalke, I think he is, yeah.
Yeah, we've seen his name being linked with us as well. The fact that we're being linked with goalies suggests that we're maybe in the market for a goalie. I can't see us being in the market for a number two. So I either think we go and sign an absolute clear number one, or we give the jersey to John McLaughlin. And as I said, I've got no issues with John McLaughlin being number one. He's not let us down in any of the games he's played.
Ross, same question to you. If Giovanni he's in it for the long haul, which we all hope and pray that he is, McGregor decides he wants to wrap it at the end of the season, do we look to replace a number one, or does McLaughlin automatically move the next ring up the ladder, do you think?
It's a really, really interesting one. I mean, John McLaughlin's not young, but also McGregor's shown that longevity that the modern day goalkeeper can have with the right sports science around him. Yeah. I think, and perhaps this is unfair, there's a lack of glamour around John McLaughlin. So he's kind of a reliable, safe, sensible, and probably reasonably cheap choice.
Yeah.
I think I'd actually, and I think it's similar to what Dougie was saying a moment ago, I'd be okay either way. If we stick with John McLaughlin, I don't think it's going to cost us anything over the course of next season. If we do go out and sign someone to be a proper number one, it would have to be a real standout that would kind of get us all excited, and I'd be happy with that as well. So I don't think we can really do the wrong thing here. I don't think anyone thinks that John McLaughlin's going to cost us 3, 4, 5, 6 points over the course of next season. So there's probably other areas that I'd like to be invested. Actually, there's certainly areas on that pitch that I'd like to be invested in first and much more heavily. So if it comes down to a question of finances, John McLaughlin all the way. I don't think we have any issue with that.
Sorry, Douglas.
No, I was going to say, John McLaughlin just has heavy Neil Alexander vibes to me. Yeah. You know, a goalie that's very reliable. He's never let us down. But as Ross said, he's just not sexy. You know, it doesn't come across as when Alan McGregor hangs up his gloves, we're bringing in John McLaughlin to replace him. It just doesn't feel like Alan McGregor's going to go down in history as one of our greatest goalies. It doesn't strike me as we're bringing in a goalie that's going to compete for that title. But as we've said, I think if John McLaughlin is our number one next year, he's not going to let us down.
Listen, I think when we speak about our greatest goalie, it seems like a good a time as any to really pass on our best wishes to Andy Gorham, his family and close friends. Of course, like the club announced last week that he's having some health difficulties just now, and everyone at Gersnet, needless to say, wish him all the best in his future challenges. So hopefully he continues to recover and recovers very well indeed. Back to the game at Fir Park on Saturday. So we went to the game and we've made all the changes, and everyone at this point's thinking, yep, the league's gone, we've chucked it. And Liam Kelly got the memo because he chucked one in there himself, didn't he? Ross, without focusing on the mistake that he's clearly made, Liam Kelly's quite an able goalkeeper, we have to say. The two things I want to really highlight on the first goal, the delivery from Tav to the back post was excellent, and Connor Goldson, who I thought again was really impressive all day Saturday. His header into the danger area was equally as good, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It surprised me actually to see that kind of short corner routine. And actually, as soon as that happened, I was a little bit annoyed because Tav's got such good delivery, just put the ball in the box. But it's quite clear that we have two set corner routines in my mind. You have front post Joe Aribo, flick it on, see what happens, and you have back post Connor Goldson, knock it back across and see what happens. Both of them have been incredibly fruitful, actually. And so, look, whether it's Scott Wright's goal or not, I think everyone on that park wants it to be Scott Wright's goal, including Liam Kelly. And I still think he got a touch on it. I don't know, but it was a wonderful ball in. It was absolutely deadly, and I'm pleased to see that kind of a move paying off, because clearly they put a lot of time and effort into that on the training pitch. It was a wonderful ball in. Connor Goldson's peeled around the back absolutely superbly. It's a shame for the goalkeeper in a way. If the goalkeeper hadn't have got that hand on it, who knows what would have happened. But yeah, really, really, really well worked goal. I always like seeing us score from set pieces. It's one of the few things that you can actively practice time and time again. And so, yeah, that's a good goal in my book.
And Dougie, one of the, I think it ties into the point made at the start of the pod, was all the changes being made. I don't think anyone would have expected Scott Wright to be in the middle of the 6-yard box, hustling, trying to get a goal there.
Right place, right time.
Absolutely, there it is.
I never put Scott Wright as a 6-yard box striker, mind you. There was some debate as to whether he was the one that got the final touch on it to get it over the line. There was absolutely no debate in the second goal, was there?
Yeah, absolutely, which we'll come to. I think the way these games, they always have, particularly for Park, there's moments that you look back and think that could have really changed the game. I want to focus on the sending off of Balogun. So when I initially saw it, my gut reaction when I saw it was, I'm not sure that's a red. However, when I've seen it a couple of times since, Dougie, I don't think there's any debate it's a red.
Yeah, I think it's a really poor tackle from an experienced player. Yeah. I think it's an easy red card. He's gone over the ball, the studs are up. It's the last thing we wanted before Thursday. We've got to play an hour with 10 men in the pitch, meaning that some guys are going to feature on Thursday will have had to put in an extra shift to cover more ground. Yeah. And obviously Calvin Bassey started on the bench, meaning he was most likely getting a rest before Thursday. So we've cut his rest short. So I think it was the last thing that we needed. I think Balogun's let himself down and he's let his teammates down. But if you're talking about Balogun being a straight red card for his challenge, I think the one about 5 minutes later on, was it Diallo?
I think it was it not Scott Wright? Was it Wright?
Scott Wright.
I think it was Scott Wright. Yeah.
I think it was something called a jammer, maybe for Motherwell. But I think if Balogun is a red card, that's certainly right up there. Yeah. I think one of the big differences for me, which is really frustrating, and I kept going on about it during the Champions League when I seen Atletico Madrid, is whenever there's a foul against us, for example, the Motherwell players hounded the referee. See, when you've seen the one in the other, the shoes in the other foot, the minute that tackle goes in, there's not a single Rangers player shouting for any decision to be made, and it allows the referee to think about it. Yeah. And the referee can make his mind up and make a decision under zero pressure. And I'm not saying that we should be hounding referees. We'll leave that up to our neighbours across the other side of the city. But the gamesmanship from teams like Atletico Madrid does win them the odd point, and it's all about marginal gains in this league. For me, I want to see us being a wee bit more, excuse the French, I want to see us be a wee bit more like bastards. I want to see us shout for everything, and I think we should have put more pressure on the referee there.
Yeah, listen, I fully agree with you. Ross, on the tackle, one of the things that surprised me the most, other than Dougie's absolutely right, experienced pro. Do you know what I mean? Liam Balogun's no some 18-year-old that's just at the B squad. It's when he makes the tackle. Do you know what I mean? It's in an area of the pitch that, he's obviously doing his job by going across to maybe shepherd the ball away, but he nails the boy in the touchline and just doesn't have to do it.
Yeah, it's a really, really daft one, and I agree with both of you. It's a red card. I don't think you can have any complaints. Actually, at the time of the game yesterday, I was in the car and I was listening to Tom Miller's Rangers TV commentary. I've now watched the full 90 minutes this morning, but Tom Miller sort of saying, "Oh, it's debatable. Maybe he's got the ball first. It's not a red card." It was a red card. I think we can all see absolutely. That. Leon Balogun, it is a strange one. It's not like him at all. I remember going back to the first Old Firm game of the season at Ibrox. We won 1-0. Leon Balogun was outstanding that day because of the number of kind of blood and thunder sliding tackles that he put in. He's certainly got that ability in his locker. He's completely misjudged that, and he's made a really rash decision, which is really, really out of character for him. It's really unlike him. I can't think of another rash, stupid decision that he's made. His decision making and his kind of footballing intelligence is one of his strongest attributes. Yeah, he did. I think I'm right in saying he went down with a head knock, a clash of heads in the passage of play leading up to our corner that got us the goal, which is about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes before the red card happened. Whether that's had any, maybe I'm grasping at straws here. I love Leon Balogun as a player. Maybe I'm just looking for any kind of excuse. It could have had an impact. He's gone down, really serious head knock. He's got back up and made a stupid decision. Maybe that's had something to do with it. But look, no complaints. It's clearly thrown, as Dougie rightly says, thrown some of our plans to rest players into a bit of disarray. But we got the 3 points that we were asking for, and we move on.
I think one of the things that jumped out of me when I seen it was just whereabouts he makes contact with the ball. So if he makes contact with the centre of the ball, it's a great tackle because he's just going to follow right through and he's going to take the ball away. But because he almost runs over the top of the ball, do you know what I mean? The next thing that he's going to hit is the poor bugger's leg, effectively. It's exactly that. He kind of rolls over the top of the ball, which means that the angle of that, his studs are up, and he is naturally, I don't know how high a ball is, but he's say at least 12 inches off the ground. Yeah, absolutely. It is what it is. And listen, Dougie, I think you make a great point. The Motherwell centre half tackle, 3 or 4 minutes later, you could have seen almost as a red card as well. And Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was not amused at all that it wasn't a red, I think, based on what happened with Balogun previous.
I do think it's a red card. I just seen one of the comments there from James saying that we probably shouldn't need to put the pressure on the referee because the referee should be able to make that decision himself. And I think he's right. I think the referee's bottled a big call in the game. I think it's a red card.
Yeah, and I don't want us to go down how good are the referees in this country debate. Not tonight, for goodness sake. Listen, it wasn't all about Rangers in the first half. Motherwell, of course, did score in the first half. Their equaliser, a bit of, excuse the term, fanning about from Glenn Kamara that he would have got away with last season. I think we appreciate he would have dragged the ball back and sort of moved away with it at pace and looked really quite relaxed about it all. He's not got that this season. Loses possession. We don't particularly defend it well after that, I have to say. I don't think we really organise ourselves properly after Kamara loses the ball. The cross comes over and it's a good finish from Tierney, I think, was the Motherwell scorer, who clearly isn't from a family who have season ticket holders in and around the ground, I think it's safe to say. One of the things I seen on social media, Ross, indeed, was could the goalkeeper have came and claimed the ball at the cross? Now, my own gut reaction is if our goalkeepers had capes on their shoulders, they ain't coming for that cross. No danger.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're probably only asking that question because of the criticism that's been levelled at McGregor over the course of the season about coming for crosses, most of which has been fair and justified. But in that case, that kind of ball, the distance away from the goal, no, he shouldn't have come for that cross. I think he was right staying on his line. The defending, however, could have been better. And that's, as you rightly say, that starts with Kamara, who just makes a bit of an arse of it. Yeah. But there's still another sort of 8, 9, 10 seconds before the ball comes in that leads to the goal. And we were just a little bit sort of sluggish and disorganised, I think. And it's very different circumstances, but not dissimilar to the goal that we conceded against Celtic in the Scottish Cup semi-final. Yeah, it's just like, guys, just switch on. This is a dangerous moment. That's really frustrating, because I don't think being switched off is necessarily an affliction that we've suffered from this season. So I'm not quite sure where that's coming from, but the defence, I think, on the whole, could have done better. That starts with Kamara, but it's not just about Glenn Kamara. Obviously, I think at that point we are psychologically a little bit reeling from the sending off that happened a few moments before. But I don't think criticism really can be thrown at McGregor for that one.
And I think you have to say as well, it was a good header by the boy, wasn't it? I mean, it was a good header placed. There was no goalkeeper getting it. It was a good header.
It's a good header, but if I'm being very critical, Scott, I think it's one of Calvin Bassey's biggest weaknesses. I don't think he's particularly good in the air for a big guy. And for me, Bassey's allowed him to get off the ground and get some movement on the ball. Bassey should be stronger in the air there. I want to see a centre back going right through the ball there. And I think, as Ross said, positionally we were weak. We've allowed the midfield runners from Motherwell to come into the box. You can see the position of our midfielders there. They're not following the runners. But as I said, I think Calvin Bassey should be putting his head right through that.
And Dougie, we'll stick with you. That was really, we're approaching half time at this point. We're one each. We're down to 10 men. What's your gut saying at half time as you go in there one each? At this point, you obviously don't know if Celtic are going to go up to Dingwall and drop any points or not. We now know that they didn't. By that point, you're thinking, oh no, this is maybe an opportunity lost again.
As I said earlier on, I had a family day planned yesterday, so I was watching briefly on my phone whilst at a kids' play park. And I was kind of half following it, but at half time I thought the game was done. I genuinely thought that from there we were not going to come back and win the game. And you've credited Gio already for his tactics through the game. I think Gio's getting it right at the moment. I think back to some of the podcasts where I expressed some concern with our manager, and I think I was right to express the concern. We threw away a sizable lead, and I'm still raging at the fact that we've thrown away the league title this season. But there's some really encouraging signs. I think Gio's starting to learn how to win games in the bread and butter Scottish football. But I think one of the biggest things, you've mentioned already about some of the squad players playing. I think he's now beginning to have faith outside of the core group of players that he continued to play.
Yeah.
And, we've spoken before about, I think he burnt certain players out. I think he overplayed Morelos, and, Morelos' injury was probably caused by overplaying him. He should have been taking Morelos off, and he should have been bringing Roof on and giving him minutes. It's good to see him starting to put a bit more faith, and I think that faith's beginning to get repaid.
Ross, I imagine that the halftime team talk in the home dressing room would have been, they're down to 10 men. When you come out in the second half, get right in about their ribs. Do you know what I mean? Get right into them. And we started the second half like a train, didn't we?
Yeah, I was actually really impressed with how we started the second half. I think it was a really defining period of the game. Obviously, we get the goal really early on. But I don't know what's been said in our dressing room, but I think it's really impressive from us kind of psychologically to come out in the way that we did. I think you're right. You would expect Motherwell to come out and be physical and absolutely go for it. I was actually singing their manager's praises before the game on Saturday yesterday. But I was disappointed with Motherwell, truth be told. I thought they were really, really poor. I thought they were wasteful on the ball. I thought they kind of lacked an identity in a lot of ways. And Rangers took advantage of that. Now, clearly, we lost Diallo midway through that first half, but we didn't lose the identity. We didn't lose the kind of hunger and tenacity of Fashion Sakala, the pace of Scott Wright, and we kind of did that to devastating effect. So the game plan didn't change. I think I was the same as Dougie. I was really, really worried at halftime. I thought there's no way back from this, and I kind of expected us to crumble a little bit, but I'm really full of praise, particularly for the likes of Scott Wright and Fashion Sakala, who I think were just full of energy, full of industry. Poor Motherwell side, absolutely a poor Motherwell side, but really, really impressive stuff from us.
And Dougie, on Scott Wright, he has listen, this season he's had a bit of a tough time. I think he gets, sometimes quite rightly, he gets a bit of a doing for his final ball, which isn't really up to scratch. However, I have to say, Braga, good. Celtic, good yesterday, very good, took his goal very well.
I think that's the difference. I think particularly Sunday against Celtic last week, I thought Scott Wright came on and he put in a really good shift, but his final ball was still pretty poor.
Yeah.
In that final third, in the circumstances in a big game, you want to see a bit more quality, especially when you've got guys like Amad Diallo on the bench.
Yeah.
Diallo, I mentioned around Gio losing faith in some of the fringe players. I think he lost faith in Amad Diallo in particular at Celtic Park, and he's had to work really hard to get back in. But you're talking about a player of real quality. He might not have the work rate of someone like Scott Wright, but he's got frightening technical ability. I think the difference on yesterday with Scott Wright is that final ball. He's been there in the penalty box for the first goal. The second goal is a great finish. He's made a great run. Don't get me wrong, Sakala deserves a lot of credit for his run. I know we're going to look ahead to the Leipzig game. That's what we need from Sakala getting into the European game in the first leg, is we need him to carry the ball, to run at defenders, potentially sometimes when he's on his own. But Wright's made a very intelligent run to the side. He's actually allowed the left-sided, I think it's the left back from Motherwell, to come inside to try and get Sakala, and it's given him an inch to get that angle for a shot. And as I said earlier on, for me, Scott Wright, I seen a poll earlier on in the chat around man of the match. For me, Scott Wright was my man of the match yesterday.
Ross, the thing that I thought was really clever about Wright's goal is that he almost puts it in the only place that he can score. He can't put it down to the left-hand side of the goalkeeper. It almost has to come right across the left back, goes through the left back's legs, which is always nice to see. But because of where Liam Kelly's positioned, it's always going to just drift by him and trickle into that bottom right-hand corner. It was good for Scott Wright. I think you could see the elation after him scoring. It was a huge relief just for him to get a goal and maybe a monkey off his back a little bit.
Absolutely. I think we all probably wanted to see Scott Wright add some goals to his game.
Yeah.
Clearly a very talented player. I think it must have been a really, really frustrating season for him personally. He came in obviously halfway through last year and looked really, really promising, and it's just not quite happened for him this season. He's not kicked on in the way that we would have liked him to. And there was almost a danger of his Rangers career tailing off here and kind of doing a bit of a Jordan Jones of going, well, he was a good player, but it just never really happened, and he'll go off somewhere else and do okay. I'd still like to see Scott Wright doing really well in a Rangers shirt. I think there's clearly a very talented player in there. Still needs refining, still needs to maybe, I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but I agree with what you said a moment ago, Scott, that last 3 games he's played really, really well. Maybe this is the impact of confidence. I think confidence is a huge thing for a lot of football players. But I think he was my man of the match as well. His running was really, really dangerous. He was always in good positions, and he took his goal absolutely beautifully. It was, it's a really, really sort of cultured and stylish finish. So, yeah, really, really pleased for him. I hope he has a really sort of strong, productive pre-season. He'll be fighting for starting positions again next season. He probably won't start off the season as a first choice. He's up against some good players in the likes of Ryan Kent, Joe Aribo could be deployed there. Even the likes of Yanis Hadji returning, if that's where he might be deployed as well. But it's kind of all in Scott Wright's hands now, what he wants to do and where he takes it. And look, the signs are looking pretty promising. And
I think as well, Ross, listen, guys like Scott Wright and Sakala, who will come on in a second, are going to be very important over the next week. We know that, do you know what I mean? We're missing Morelos now until next season. That's just the way of it. Typically, we're missing Roof at a really shitty time where we could have done with him being available. So Scott Wright is going to get game time, and he's going to get game time ahead of guys like Diallo, I think, purely because of his work rate, the effort that he puts in. So he's definitely going to get that game time. It's up to him to sort of show that he's up for it.
Yeah, and he deserves that. I think he's earned the right. In the absence of a Kamar Roof and an Aaron Ramsey and a Alfredo Morelos, he's earned the right to go and play. We have also seen, I think, a lot of our European journey this season so far has been defined by teams playing very high lines and leaving a lot of space in behind. Perfect for Scott Wright. Get on the ball and run in behind. So, it is all set up for him to do well. And you're right, we will see a lot more of him.
Dougie, the third goal, Rangers' third goal of the afternoon, came, needless to say, from a penalty. So Nick Walsh got the memo. It was a penalty. I felt it was. Listen, it was soft. I don't think there's any doubt. It was a soft penalty. A great run by Sakala. They couldn't deal with Sakala running at them with the ball. I felt that it gave them problems, particularly in the second half. And the big guy, I think it was McGabey, brings them down. And listen, it was a penalty. I don't know if you agree.
I think it's a stonewall penalty. I think the Motherwell players slid in. He's not got the ball and he's taken Sakala's legs away from him. Yeah. Credit to Sakala for the run, but I think it's a penalty. In fact, I think it's the worst conspiracy theory ever that Rangers always get penalties, because I don't know if you've seen the stat in the league this season, but Ross County have the most penalties in the league on 9. Then it's Hearts on 8, and Rangers and Celtic are both joint with 7.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. You know, when you think of the narrative that's been drawn about Rangers always get penalties, every game we get a penalty. James Tavernier only scores from penalties. It's a pile of shite for me.
Those pesky stats.
Those pesky stats. They quash every rumour. But I think James Tavernier deserves huge credit for another well-placed penalty.
Yep.
80 goals for Rangers as a right-back is an incredible stat. And
it really is.
You know, I know we're all sitting watching Twitter right now to see what the Player of the Year awards results are. For me, James Tavernier is our Player of the Year this season.
Yep.
He's been Mr. Consistent for the full year. You know, you can look at pre-AFCON, the former Joe Aribo. I thought Joe Aribo was brilliant before the African Cup of Nations, but he came back and he just didn't return. Alfredo Morelos had a brilliant spell at one point, but it's a consistency, and it's not just the consistency of this season. You know, so many people disrespect James Tavernier, and I said it last year as well around Connor Goldson. Connor Goldson, for me, is a player that you won't realise just how important he is until he's gone.
Yeah.
And I seen a chat earlier on around we should be giving him a new contract. I think the contract's on the table. I think it's up to Connor Goldson. I'm quietly confident, but really hopeful that at the end of the season, depending on how things go in Europe and depending on where his head's at, you know, he's got family commitments. His wife's just had a second baby.
I think so, yeah.
They may want to go back to the Midlands again, and, you know, West Brom are one of the teams that's rumoured. I just hope that he looks at it and he thinks, nah, do you know what? There's no place like Ibrox. What an experience it's been this season for all the players in Europe. I'm hopeful that he stays, but for him and for Tav, you know, you mentioned earlier on about the Motherwell game. The two of them for me were excellent, and they've been excellent all season. James Tavernier's been excellent since the day he signed, in my opinion.
Ross, if there was ever a time for Ross Wilson to get Connor Goldson to sign his name on the paper, I would argue it was probably after Braga, when he was staring up into the stands, amazed at the adulation he was getting. He'd done exactly the same thing after we knocked Celtic out the Scottish Cup last weekend, and he's looking up into the support, and you can't help but think he's thinking, I'm not going to get this anywhere else. This isn't going to happen for me anywhere else. So any decision he makes, I think, is going to be a really difficult one that must be playing his heartstrings now for him to think, I might be playing somewhere else next season.
Look, there is clearly, I think you're absolutely right, and I think Dougie hit on a key point there. There's clearly some form of kind of pull between the professional and the personal. I think that's the only real explanation as to, because as I say, it's quite visible displays of emotion that this guy's showing.
Absolutely.
It does seem to be really, really affecting him, but that's kind of what makes me think that he won't sign on. And I don't know anything more than anyone else, but I believe it's one of those that if it was going to be done, it would be done by now. I hope I'm proved wrong, because I'm not one of those who sort of says just give him whatever he's asking for, because I think there's a limit to that. But I would love to see him carry on beyond the end of the season. I suspect if that was going to happen, he'd have signed on by now already. And I think that's why we're starting to see the kind of emotional side of it. You're right, though, that he won't get this anywhere else. I was looking at his career stats. He's played, as well as Rangers, he's played at Shrewsbury, Cheltenham and Brighton. Well, you're not going to get the same adulation and passion at any of those clubs. West Brom's a great club. Hawthorns is a wonderful stadium with very, very passionate fans. but it's not the same.
No.
And you can ask almost every Rangers player who then went and plied their trade in the English Championship. It's not the same. Of course, it's not the same. The money might be better, but I don't even think it's that really for Goldson. I suspect Dougie's absolutely right. I suspect it's the family tie. And look, if this is how it all kind of ends for him at Rangers, he can be very, very proud of what he's done. He's walking away at least with a league winners medal, hopefully with a Scottish Cup medal, and possibly even with a Europa League winners medal. So a fantastic servant for the club for the last few years. And I agree with the pair of you. He's had a really, really strong season again.
Yeah, listen, personally, I think there's a good chance you'll see him rocking up Aston Villa next season. And I don't think him and Tyrone Mings as a centre-half performing together is that bad, I have to say. Ross, I'll come back to you. James Tavernier's playing really well now, and I agree with Dougie. I do think he's player of the year this year. Has to be. His numbers are just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. How important is it to have the captain playing as well as he is just now with these two huge games around the corner?
Absolutely vital. Absolutely vital. I mean, yesterday was goal number 80, I think, for Rangers. Ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Even, is this his seventh season at Rangers? Maybe even his 8th season at Rangers.
Yep.
That longevity you don't see very often anymore. So we are talking about, in my opinion, he's now in that conversation of legend status, the captain that delivered 55. And this is his best season, in my opinion, to date. I think he's better this year than he was last year. Last year he was very, very good, but others were better. This season he is, for me, standout player of the season. We're all kind of refreshing our Twitter feeds here, I think, waiting for the news to drop as to who won it, but no one will be surprised when the tweet comes in to say that it was Tav. And I think it's not just important to have him playing well, but it's important. I think when we get to say the Scottish Cup final on the 21st of May, Tavernier was in that team that lost to Hibs.
Yeah,
it's very, very important for him to, I guess, spell out the expectations, because believe me, he knows the expectations after being here for 7 years, but also spell out the heartache and the hurt that he's been through as a player at Rangers, because this season will hurt a lot of them. A lot of the players that have come in and immediately tasted success last season, they won't actually know the pain and the heartache that the club and the fans have been through in the past 10 years. So I think he's got a really, really important role to play, not just setting the standards off the pitch. Not just setting the standards on the pitch, but leading the message off the pitch as well. And
Dougie, you gave us the thumbs up there. You got some breaking news. Is it a Jim White moment for you?
Yep, yellow tie at the ready. The breaking news is Calvin Bassey has just won Young Player of the Year. So 2 things. One, that means the Player of the Year award's going to be announced shortly. But on Calvin Bassey, I think Calvin Bassey's had a great season. I think we've got a real a rough diamond in Calvin Bassey. He might be poor in the air. He does have some areas of weakness that he needs to develop, but he's a young lad. I can't remember what age he is. I think he's 22. Yeah, we're talking about a player that can play centre back and left back, in 2 completely different styles. As a centre back, he can be commanding in the challenge. At left back, he is up and down the wing the full game. I think he's had a tremendous season, and it's very well deserved that he's getting Young Player of the Year.
Dougie, I'll stick with you. I'll tell you why. We spoke about Bassey being able to play the left back equally as well as that sort of left-sided centre-half. Bit of flexibility there, which is great to see. Borna Barisic seems to have came out of nowhere and has made the left-back role his own again after, you go back to the 2nd of February at Celtic Park, a shocking night for him. Maybe the worst left-back performance I think I've ever seen from a Rangers player. And he disappeared. Confidence in the gutter. Fans' confidence in him, lower than that, I would say. Last 3 games, great. Left back's his own again, isn't it?
I think one of the things you've got to say about Barisic is it's great management from Gio. Yeah. He's recognised that he has had an absolute stinker at Celtic Park, and Borna Barisic is probably the epitome of us as a team, as confidence players. When his confidence is high, you see the performances he's given just now. When his confidence is low, you've seen Callum McGregor calling him a shite bag at Celtic Park, and I think that's what you get from Borna, as he's heartless. I really like Borna on his day. I think when Borna Barisic is on this form, for me, he deserves to start left back, and he would be left back going into Thursday night's game. But I would sell Borna Barisic in the summer, because we need players who can fight in adversity. And I despite really liking Borna, I just don't think he has the mental strength required to be a success at Rangers. But it's how much money we're going to get for Borna. He's at that age now. I think we'd be lucky to get 2 million. I think it'd be somewhere between 1 and 2 million. And it's then looking at who can you really get to replace him for 1 to 2 million. But yeah, I think you're getting something completely different between Borna and Bassey, and I think the two of them do complement each other, because in certain games you can play Borna, in other games you can play Calvin Bassey. His long-term future for me isn't at Ibrox, unfortunately.
Yeah, Ross, the cynic in me suggests that Barisic's form is picking up and he's looking really, really good all of a sudden, just ahead of the summer transfer window opening again. Yeah,
possibly. It's a frustrating one. I think his value has dipped quite significantly from probably where it was 18 months ago when he was Croatia's starting left back, and it could well be that he's angling for that move. He knows this season has been really disappointing. It's been comparable to his first season when we signed him from Osijek, and remember that we were playing John Flanagan at left back ahead of him. So some dark times for him, and it is a strange one. He's sort of this really hard looking guy who I certainly would not want to mess with, but he does seem to have a certain, I don't know, I agree with Dougie, maybe a fragility or a frailty. Yeah. That being said, he has also provided us with some wonderful moments this season. His delivery into the box against Celtic, wasn't it, where he sort of the balls into the box. It was as if we jumped back 12, 18 months. He's a very, very good, very talented player. He is, I mentioned it earlier, but he's one of these real confidence players, and his confidence took a battering that led to him having an extended absence out of the team. Calvin Bassey, of course, stepped up, and Calvin Bassey's absolutely fearless. Like, he does not care who he's playing against, and he will do the same against Ross County as he will against Dortmund. Yeah. And we've seen that this season. He's a real asset to the squad, a real prospect as well. So it was one of those that if Borna does go, I would have been happy to see Borna go in the summer at the end of last season. I think we'd have got a lot of good money for him. But if Borna does go, I'm confident in Calvin Bassey to be that first choice. The young lad, Robbie Fraser, plays for the B team as well. Very highly rated, good prospect. So I don't think we're in a bad position if Borna was to move on.
The thing about Bassey as well, I think as the seasons went on, we've steadily seen progress from him, particularly when he's played at left back. You look at the Dortmund game when he sort of he terrorises their right back and then gets the cross in for Tavernier to score. I don't think he does that. Maybe 3 months previous, I don't think he makes up the ground to make the cross, and the cross certainly wouldn't be as good as it was. So I think we've seen a steady improvement as the season went on. And listen, he's certainly my young player of the year. There's no two ways about it. Listen, guys, let's get into what is a huge week for the football club. Ross, I know you're going away to Germany on Thursday, so we'll come to you in a second. Dougie, what's your thoughts going into the Leipzig game on Thursday? Is there a confidence there that you've maybe not felt before? Or do you think we can go there and get a result?
I'm just excited, Scott. After Manchester in 2008 and everything that's happened in the last 10 years, I didn't think we'd be in this position again so soon. Yeah. So it's a privilege to see your club in a semi-final of a European tournament. So I'm really excited about Thursday. For me, there's two things. One, I just want us to be in the tie, to get back to Ibrox. It's such a huge advantage to be back at Ibrox with our support for the second leg, and I just want it to be, from a first leg perspective, I just want the tie to be still playable in the second leg. But it's just sod's law, the injuries that are happening to us at this key stage of the season. Kemar Roofe, obviously, an absolute hammer blow after the semi-final at Hampden. But do you know what? Something tells me that this game might actually suit a runner. You know, Kemar Roofe's a penalty box striker.
Yeah.
I think we probably would have started Sakala anyway if Roofe was even fit for this game. There's a bit of talk right now, and I've seen some chat on the podcast page right now on YouTube, that Sakala didn't travel to Dortmund because of the German vaccination rules. We're not clear right now whether Sakala will be able to travel, because the rules still exist that you have to be vaccinated to travel to Germany unless it's an urgent need. I don't know if there's any exemptions that can be brought in around a semi-final of a European football tournament. But if Sakala does play, I think Sakala might actually suit this game. I think his legs could really help us. One of my biggest criticisms around Sakala, though, and it's a big difference between him and Roofe, is for all his energy, all his enthusiasm, his pace that terrifies defenders, he just lacks that bit of composure and class in front of goal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully Sakala's fit, because the alternatives are fit to travel, because the alternatives frighten me. But yeah, I'm just excited for Thursday. Unlike Ross, I'm not travelling, but I'll be watching it in a pub.
Listen, you know, I really like the way that you refer to the excitement of it. Earlier on tonight, I was looking at, I videoed the Tav penalty against Braga, and I was watching it back, and it took a wee bit longer for him to take the penalty because the ref was messing about with their players, making sure they were out the road and etc. And when he scored, you know, I don't know how I managed to keep hold of my phone, to be perfectly honest with you, because there was just sheer elation all around me. So I can absolutely associate with the excitement, the anticipation of potentially getting them back to a shootout at Ibrox. I think the importance of going over there and keeping a clean sheet, maybe coming back with a 1-0 defeat, I think would be huge for the tie. And I think it really gives us a shot in the arm to do something at Ibrox. Ross, you lucky fool, you're going. Looking forward to it, I imagine. Do you go over there with trepidation or bags of confidence?
Neither, probably. I think it's a joy and a delight to be in the competition at this stage. Of course it is. We have earned the right to be in the conversation about the final. We have beaten, on paper, a harder team in this competition already. So there's no reason to think that we are down and out and beaten. I agree with both of you. Let's keep this to within one. Let's keep this alive and have a good night at Ibrox. Let's give the fans something to remember. Let's have a reason to celebrate. I am confident that whatever happens, both this coming Thursday and the following Thursday back at Ibrox, the players will be applauded off the park. Surely by the fact that they've got us to this stage and they've allowed us to go on this journey this season, which after the second game of the group stage when we lost to Sparta Prague, this was unfathomable that we would be off to Leipzig in a semi-final. They're a very tough team. Of course they are. That is reflected in the bookmakers' odds. We are not the favourite. We haven't been the favourite for a very, very long time, actually. So that's fine. That suits us. I think if we were to go there and park the bus and set 11 men behind the ball, we're in for a really tough time.
Yep.
Let's go for it. We've got, as I say, we've got that pace. None of us know what Gio's going to do. Gio is, like I say, I think he'll always have a plan, and he'll always have a few plans, and he'll be willing to change that plan, as we saw in the home leg against Dortmund when he changed it at halftime. I'm very, very much looking forward to it. I was in Leipzig was it 2017 when we had that friendly in the snow in January. Big Philip Senderos and that was Barry Mackay playing that day as well. I think not a happy day when we went and lost 4-0 in the snow. So I'm really excited to be going back. I think it'll be a wonderful occasion, and let's keep it close. Let's have one. Alec Anderson made a really good point on our preview show yesterday. We have played the maximum amount of home games now in the Europa League. Like, we couldn't be playing any more games at Ibrox because there are no more home games to be had after next week. It's a really weird thing to say, But that's how far this team have gotten us, is that however badly or however well it goes, there was only ever going to be the potential of one more 90 minutes of football in this competition. We've literally got that far. So it's been a really wonderful sort of experience this season. I can't wait for Thursday. I actually can't wait for Wednesday, when my experience will start in Germany. I'm less looking forward to Friday, when I think my experience will have carried on a wee bit too long. But it's going to be a really good week.
I'll tell you, it'll be fascinating to see the boy in Kunku, who they've got as a wonderful footballer. I mean, he's had a fantastic campaign domestically over there. He's been really good for them in the Europa League all season. I'm sure he came up through the PSG sort of setup. He's a cracking player. We'll do well to keep him quiet for any portion of the game, to be brutally honest with you. Dougie, we now know that James Tavernier has been voted by his peers as Player of the Year. I suspect the next announcement will be that he is the top man. I would fully expect him to be Player of the Year as well. Before we get on a bit more about Tavernier, Dougie, I just wondered, I couldn't go to the Malmo game. I was on holiday, but I remember watching the Malmo home tie, and I watched them trudge off. They were down to 10 men at that point. And at that point, you think, got a really good chance of getting the Champions League here. And brutal honesty, the Europa League semi-final, it's never anywhere near your head at that point. You don't think it's anything you're going to think about. To think that we are 180 minutes away from getting to a major European final is just incredible, is it not?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Don't get me wrong though, Malmo completely threw up our plans for this season. I keep going on about it. Malmo ruined us financially this year, and it set us back. Malmo, that one result against Malmo cost us the league, in my opinion, because it stopped us from being able to strengthen the team. But in terms of being here in a semi-final, to Ross's point, we're not going to be able to play any more football at Ibrox in this competition. That means the club have generated all the money from ticket sales and all that good stuff. So we have banked a lot of money from this European run. Yeah. It was unimaginable. You just mentioned Nkunku there. His stats are 17 goals and 15 assists and 31 appearances. That's the quality of player that we're going up against. He's attracting interest from all the elite clubs. Leipzig is our biggest challenge in this tournament to date. If that doesn't get you psyched up for Thursday's game and then a return leg at Ibrox, then football is not the sport for you.
Yeah, listen, absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's a game that I think we, as a support, we can look forward to. We always look forward to Thursday to hopefully bring in something positive back. The match at Ibrox a week on Thursday will just be incredible. I think it'll be like something we've never experienced before. I genuinely do. I think it'll be an incredible evening. The difference between maybe this run and the run back in 2008, in my opinion, was in 2008 we set up very cleverly not to get pumped. So we were smart in the way we played the games. We managed them really well. We had the master of management, as far as I was concerned back then, who made sure we were going to be okay every single 90 minutes, and he got us there. This time it's different because we've went for teams. Do you know what I mean? We've went for Belgrade, Braga, Borussia Dortmund. Do you know what I mean? Dortmund never beat us over two legs. We gave them a bit of a going over in their own backyard. Ross, I think there's a confidence that the Rangers fans maybe can't be too used to going into such a big game on Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. You back this team to score against anyone. I mean, I've just seen also John Lundstrom, his goal against Dortmund has been voted for goal of the season. Brilliant. And I was just watching it there on Twitter. That goal put us 3-0 up at Dortmund. We score. We will score goals wherever we go. And you're absolutely right. And this is what I meant when I referred to earlier when I said put 11 men behind the ball and we're done. We're done. So, and that's not to say that Walter's style of doing it was wrong, because the players that we had and the oppositions that we came up against, that was absolutely the right way to do it. Yeah. It's completely different this time around. Probably more exciting this time around. And I agree with you. Given the context of everything that we've been through in the past 10 to 15 years, next Thursday night at Ibrox, if we are alive in this tie, is going to be like nothing else.
I can't wait. I mean, I'm really. I don't want to wish my life away, but I'm almost looking forward to that already. And we've got a lot of big games to come before the home leg, of course, the leg over there. Dougie, we have the small matter of a visit to Celtic Park this coming Sunday. I'm sure we'll speak about that on the Gersnet channel as the week goes by. Old Firm games are always. They always look after themselves as far as I'm concerned. This is the last one, of course, of the season. A lot riding on it in the sense that there's a bit of a pride thing, I think, now. I wonder how we would have felt going into that game on Sunday had we been knocked out of the Scottish Cup semi-final last weekend. I think it would be an entirely different landscape this weekend.
Yeah, I said it to my dad at the game last weekend that if we get beat at Hampden, I think our heads would have been down getting into Leipzig and also going to Celtic Park in the last Old Firm Glasgow derby of the season, and I don't think we'd have won, being perfectly honest. But on the Celtic game at Celtic Park, the league's done. It's hard to say, it's hard to admit at this stage. The league's done. For me, the priority is Europe. I hope the supporters go with their sombreros and their beach balls. But I fully expect Gio to rotate the team again. It wouldn't surprise me if we go and we get beat. See, to be perfectly honest, I don't care because we're in a semi-final of a European tournament. That's the priority for me. And, when Ross was talking there, I was just thinking about a conversation we had at the beginning of this season on the pod around what our objectives were for this year. This season goes down as a disappointment so far because we have not won the league. Yeah. Winning a league was priority number one. Winning a cup was priority number two. We fucked the league. We are to blame for not winning a league. We threw it away. We need to go and now beat Hearts. We need to go and win that cup. But we have the opportunity to turn a disappointing season into one of the greatest seasons of my life. Yeah. Because if we now go and win the Europa League, that becomes a monumental part of our club's history on our 150th year anniversary that will go down for generations looking back on this team. And you've absolutely called it bang on. When you look back in the 2008 run, it was pretty turgid. We were drawing nothing each at home and then getting away and scraping 1-0s away from home. And, it wasn't a great view. We have went toe-to-toe with some of Europe's best teams. Borussia Dortmund, let's not beat about the bush here. Borussia Dortmund were the favourites before they get knocked out. We knocked them out. We went 3-0 up at the Westfalen. The goal that John Lundstrom scored has just been voted our goal of the season. Yeah, we deserve to be in the semi-final. That's my full focus. And if we win, then I'll put it down as an exceptional season. If we get beat, it's a disappointing season.
So I'll tell you, I'll give you both the opportunity to answer this question. Last one of the night. Dougie, we'll start with you. Crystal ball time. Next Sunday night, 10:30, you're sitting here. What do you think you have from the Thursday previous and the lunchtime that day? Are we looking at sort of a win-win, win-lose, lose-lose? What are we thinking?
Genuinely, as I just said, I don't care about the Celtic game. I really don't. I don't care if we go and lose. It depends on how Thursday goes. We might rotate players. If we rotate players and we lose, I don't care. Yeah. As long as we're still in the tie. My prediction is it'll probably be a lose-lose. But I think it'll be a marginal loss over in Germany. I looked at the Bundesliga table just before I came on. They're sitting fourth. They've been on a very good run of form. Leipzig, they beat Leverkusen to overtake them to go third last weekend. And then it was probably a shock defeat yesterday to Union Berlin, a team that they just beat during the week to qualify for the German Cup final. So it's probably a bit of a shock for them to get beat this weekend. They're a very, very good team. If we get beat by one goal and the tie's still there for the taking at Ibrox, 2 losses I would take right now as long as we're still in the tie for the second leg.
And Ross, same, you strike me as a crystal ball man. Same question to you. I mean, the obvious preference is win-win. Of course it is, for goodness sake. Could we have the audacity to get 2 positive results?
Yeah, I don't see why not. And 2 positive results doesn't necessarily mean win-win. Win-win. It could be draw-win. It could be tight loss-win. Look, crystal ball time. I think we win one of them. Crystal ball time, I think the players give us a lot to be proud of. My final prediction is that I miss my flight home on Friday morning. But all in all, I think it's going to be. We spoke at the start of this month about April being a defining month. Yeah. It has been, but it's also kind of been quite difficult to define because it's been an extreme high and an extreme low. We've lost the league, but we're still in Europe. It's another defining week. It's a huge week. It's a monumental week. The eyes of the footballing world are on us. Could we be setting up a kind of an all Britain final? How amazing would that be? It's a really, really exciting week.
Yeah, it really is. Ross, listen, I hope you have a fantastic trip. Enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
Safely. And we will catch up when you get back. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dougie, good to have you on as well, buddy. Fingers crossed for a positive result on Thursday. That's all you can hope, isn't it?
That's it. Honestly, I would take a 1-goal deficit right now, but I don't want to be too negative. Surprisingly, I'm looking at the comments right now. Nobody's absolutely slaughtering me for being too negative. But genuinely, one goal in it. Coming back to Ibrox, I would bite your hands off for it right now. I genuinely, it's really strange. We're in a semi-final of a European tournament. It's one of those ones, you go to Motherwell yesterday, I don't feel confident. You're playing Leipzig and you get confident. It's a bizarre feeling, but I genuinely believe we can qualify for the final of the Europa League. And that statement alone is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, Lanarkshire to Leipzig, who'd have thought it? For goodness sake. Listen, don't forget you can check out all of our good stuff across on www.gersnet.co.uk. We've got the fan-friendly forum over there. We've got the archive, which is well worth a wee sneaky peek. I've really enjoyed your time tonight, guys. Thanks for coming on. We will probably be on and off as the week goes on as we look forward to 2 huge games for the football club on Thursday night, and of course the game against that show up next Sunday, which we will always look forward to. Have a lovely week, and we'll do it all again next week. Thanks for watching. Good night.